I'm Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doc. I have been the Retail Doctor since 1994. I'm in my 31st year. It's very exciting. And big brands, small brands, medium chains come to me when they're looking to grow their sales in a brick and mortar store. I am kind of a big deal in a very small niche of retail. I get it, there's a lot of other things you can be doing, but the number one place that retailers fall down is they have ignored the store experience to their detriment. I think the challenge we always have is some people get a lot of play on in the media. For example, we hear, oh my gosh, online is growing by 20% this Christmas. Oh my gosh, isn't it amazing? Well, hold on a second. If you removed Amazon and you removed Walmart out of that, they own 65% of online. So why we call them a retailer is beyond me. I know Walmart has stores, but it's kind of unfair, and that makes everybody feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to be online. We've got to be doing everything. TikTok, we got to be on Instagram. And I think it's a lot of distraction. A lot of brick and mortar stores these days are actually subsidizing their online stores, because what they're doing is they're funneling all the orders to the stores. So now you have people who came on board because they were friendly, they liked your products, and they liked working for you. And now they're being made into warehouse workers and ignoring the customers around them. And I write and I speak a lot about that. So when people say, well, brick and mortar is dead, I say, yeah, that experience where I walk in and I am supposed to walk in and say, do you have this thing? And they'll magically say, oh, it's right over here, sir. Those days are gone, because quite simply, if I needed that, perfect example, I have a HP printer, and when that cartridge goes down, then I need a HP 54. I'm not running down to Staples or some Office Depot to get somebody with their sacred scrunchie of keys to go and unlock the little sacred cartridge box for 30 bucks. I'm gonna probably buy it online, because we buy online. However, the big mistake, the conceit that most brick and mortar retailers miss is, if I do walk into your store, I've raised my hand to say, I'm open to other things that you have. And you treat it as if I'm in there for the sacred $30 cartridge. Woe to you, because someone should be asking me about the paper and understanding that there are plenty of other things I might need for my home office. But we don't give a crap about training anymore. So we go into, oh, we have loyalty points and we have this sale. And you just miss the fundamental thing that people go into a brick and mortar store to discover and to feel they matter. And if you get those two right, you're going to be doing fine. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Every 6 months, like Glenn Close's character in Fatal Attraction, where she comes back and I'm not dead yet. And these stories always keep coming out. Oh, there's so many. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, there are always have been a lot of brick and mortar stores that go out of business for a lot of reasons. Big news today was how Macy's is closing the original Wanamaker's in downtown Philadelphia. It's a big deal because the Wanamaker's was the first of the department stores. And they talk about, oh, the customers changed. Well, the streets changed. It's now a discount place because most of the people with money have moved out of the city center and they're not working and shopping down there. So how does Macy's continue to keep that open? It doesn't. So they cut their losses. It's a National Historic area, so the building will be fine. But it's smart. Businesses do have to adapt and say, this works for me, this doesn't. For example, I started off as a retail, actually as a consultant, really. And if you ask me about that sometime, I'll tell you the story how I became the retail doctor. But, when I started out, all I could do was to get on a plane and go somewhere. And I would train people, and that was great. And I saw something about 10 years ago when I said, the future is going to be a training program that scales, and I came up with Sales RX, and that's my premier offering now. And I still go around the world telling people how to sell more, but now I have a way to scale it and to change. Does that mean something failed? No. That's what retail is about, right? There's all kinds of ways retail innovates every day, but quite simply, you have to go where the customers are, and that isn't necessarily online. I think retailers that are thriving right now would be Lululemon, very culture driven. When I first met that brand, I don't know, was it 20 some years ago, and heard about this yoga clothing company that opened these stores, and every Sunday night they had free yoga classes. They moved all of the racks out of the way, and the managers got together with their crew and they asked them about their goals and hopes, and then helped figure out how they could help those associates live a better life. And also, to be local, they went to all the yoga instructors and then had photographs taken of them, and those appeared in their stores to show how local they were. Well, that recipe has made a monster brand who everybody keeps counting them out. Oh, someone's knocking them off. Oh, there's a cheaper version. There are. And there's a space now for Rory and some of the other niche brands, but they all know this is who we are, this is who we aren't. You look at a Starbucks roastery, great experience. This is who we are, this is who we aren't. But I think the challenge for a lot of retailers is they don't know who they are. And they say, my customer's everyone. No, it isn't. It shouldn't be. Unless you're Target, and even Target, that's a certain experience. If that's what you want, great. But if you're going to be wanting to go to Saks, then when I go to Saks, I expect it should be an engaged clientele. It should be a unique offering. And yet Saks just went through and they last year decoupled their online store from their physical store. So when I was looking for a jacket and they didn't have it, and I asked the young man, oh, well, you could just order it, right? And he goes, yeah, no, we don't get commission for that. In fact, that's a different company. Who thought that was brilliant customer service? So if we think about it, those who are understanding what great customer experiences should feel like and are training to do that, let's go back a step, because I think an awful lot of retailers look at somebody's CV and says, oh, you've worked retail, you're trained, get on the floor. And the reality is they could be bringing bad habits in from another retailer who failed, but we're so lazy in training and we devote so little money to it that you're left to the whims of the customer. And I'm telling you, one of my clients who has 14 stores and sewing stores, and we're talking, $20,000 to $50,000 machines. They're not cheap. And I always ask him, so what's your secret? And he goes, nobody come in to buy what we sell. We always show them what's new, and that takes care of itself. And I was like, yeah, that takes care of itself. They have a rigorous training program, and they know who they are, and they know who their customer is, and they found a way to get away from, oh, what brought you in today? And they're making sales. And I think that's the difference, that a selling culture gets out of being just friendly, right? And moves from friendly to moving the merchandise. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. You invest your money, put it on sales floor, you expect a return. If you don't know those numbers, then I think you're probably looking at extinction, because enough other new brands are popping up every day in food service, in quick service, certainly in retail, all kinds of things that are looking at the numbers and saying, this doesn't make sense unless we make money. We're all angry. I'm just saying, we are just waiting for someone to do something wrong, and I'm going to rail on it on social media, or I'm going to tell somebody off, or that retail employee, I'm going to make an example of them, right? We went through all that crap with COVID and people having agendas of what they were going to do to retail associates. And on the other hand, it's not unlike it's not unusual to hear somebody say, oh, well, a customer returned this and they'd worn it for, 6 months and we gave them a return. Isn't that great customer service? I go, no, that's not great customer service. Because ultimately, why did we enable a customer to be using the system so bad? And that's why returns, especially online, are something in the 128 billion. It's a huge issue because retail is designed to take products through the store and out the door. It's not designed to bring them back through the distribution and try to figure out, which is why a lot of people are saying, enough, we'll put it in our store like Macy's off price, and we'll try to get some money of it there. But that customer expectation that everything should be working all the time for me, I don't think it's going to go away, which is why if you can do AI tools where somebody can get quick service, or they can get an answer, or like Google has just rolled out Ask Me, and if you're looking for a manicure and a car shop right now, you might see that little button and you press it, and Google will call and check the price and the appointment time and get back to you. Well, that's really interesting, and that could be a competitive advantage as that rolls out in retail. That saves us time. But I think the challenge always is how much friction are we adding to a sale to keep somebody from buying it? And usually that comes down to untrained personnel. A poor retailer, one that doesn't understand it, has limited coverage. They have an employee, an associate who's overworked, who's being expected to do all kinds of things. Maybe it was a store that was designed to run on 6 people and it's running on 2 and one's on break. And they can't be everywhere. And so they're nowhere, right? They're on their phones, they're looking down, they are not trying to engage people. What they're trying to do is just endure the time of watching the hours of their life run out their feet, and they feel miserable, and they bring that feeling with them. A great retailer, when you walk in, I was just in the new Ladro store in Soho a couple weeks ago, and the manager, Natalie, said, "Does this look like a Ladro that you remember as a kid?" And I was like, "You have me at hello," because it's all custom now. It's those figurines that your grandmother used to have, but they have new artists, they have like chandeliers, all these amazing spaces. And I was intrigued, like, show me around, that's great. I think great retail is all about having fabulous stores. I think there have never been a time where more beautiful retail stores have survived and blossomed, whether those are beautiful flagships in New York City or in Tokyo, or you name it. They're beautiful, but also the merchandise is unique. It's not like something I'd see everywhere else. And more importantly, the care that you get from the associates is one that makes you feel like you matter. And the great ones have figured out whatever that is for their brand, right? It's not necessarily the same for a big line department store as it is for a niche boutique retailer, but it still comes down to exceeding what those high demanding customers expect. And that is to interrupt their day and show them that they matter and get them to buy something they probably didn't come in looking for. My goodness. Well, that's the Minority Report, right, with Tom Cruise, where you walk in, welcome, Bob Phibbs, and we're going to have all that. Well, a lot of that beacon technology we thought was going to be big 5 years ago didn't really work out. You know, personalization to me is, let's just take it apart. The word is personalization. It's a person that we're talking about. We're not talking about an AI algorithm, which is pretty much what most everybody does. We've pretty much taken a merged document and now done it onto emails, and even on my own, as the retail doctor, yes, in my newsletter that comes out every Sunday night, I'm gonna personalize it with, Dear Matt, and at the end I'll say something like, have a good day at, John's Hardware, wherever it's gonna be. Is that personalization? Maybe, but at least it tells the person getting it that I'm trying to be personal. But if you really want to be personal, why aren't we putting the person in it? Which is me training another person. How do I engage a stranger? How do I find something in common? How do I get them to drop their guard and realize that I am somebody you can trust, so that when you ask me for something, or we're talking in the sale, we're talking about what some product has, I can actually challenge you and say, yeah, I don't think that's right. Because I'm not afraid, I'm confident. And more importantly, I know that I'm still going to get the sale. If I can do that, then I think that's what makes an exceptional experience over what most of retail, which is pretty bland and boring. Well, I think there's a lot of people that want to remove as many associates as possible and make as many kiosks in a store, and to get rid of the person and call it personalization as possible. I have seen in the last couple of weeks, I think it's Best Western in Norway, they now have a virtual greeter, so it's basically a cut-out piece of lucite, and it's AI talking to you to help you check in to the hotel because they're short-staffed, they can't get enough people to work the front desk. And for overflow, that's a way to do it. Well, I'm like, for overflow, that's great. But you get rid of the front desk and just have that. Why are we even doing that? In retail, I think a recent survey by Nikki Baird showed that 75% of AI in retail right now is a chatbot on a website, which to me is like those old voicemail prompts, press 1 if you want this, press 2 if you want that. And sometimes I can get the answer quickly on something quick like an order, but more often than not, you're like, just get me to somebody who can talk to me. And then you get to a call center that has so scripted down, they don't really know the answer. And it's frustrating. In the future, yes, we think that we're going to have agents. They're going to be able to, let's say, go to Macy's and check out their website for everything I need for a wedding, and it'll come back what the prices are and all that. And that's moderately interesting to me. But at the end of the day, how much are you willing to give over the fun of buying something new? The more robotic that becomes, to me, the less attachment is. And you know it yourself. If you get something from Amazon, it's one thing. You bring home a new jacket from, let's say, a Bloomingdale's. It's in a nice, beautiful wrapper, right? And you are unwrapping it like a gift to yourself. It's a very different experience. So AI is going to help us. We know it's going to be there. There's a lot of trends. Basically, the things that it can do best is things in the back end more than the front. But security cameras that can all be aligned and that AI can be looking at and looking for potential shoplifters, that's a value add. QSR, like McDonald's. I was talking to Zeus Security at NRF recently, and he talked about how using the existing security cameras, they were able to, if they saw a large group of people, like a bus pull up, they could automatically drop fries in the fryer, and they can get the manager alerted to get out from the back office, saving them several precious minutes, because by the time those people come to the front, you've already lost it. So all those little value adds are the ones that are going to make the difference. And more importantly, they make it a more exciting place for somebody to work because it's taking care of the oh my gosh moments and smooth those out. And I think that's going to be a great thing. I always think when I see those self-serve kiosks, am I in the schedule today? Was my name badge on here? It's amazing to me that we keep hearing over and over, oh, self-checkout is the latest thing. Maybe, and in something small like the Apple Store, maybe that's okay. But it's interesting how Amazon Go is closing stores all over the place because it's too expensive. And the more often we hear about, but putting in more self-checkout, the more we're hearing somebody else remove it because of theft and a lot of things. I think everybody's been trying to figure it out and say that, it's not so bad. Nobody wants to go through self-checkout. The only reason we do is because there's not enough cashiers in the store, and technology could help on that. But again, the more you make your store less personable, I think the easier it is for me to drive by it and either shop online or for someone who will treat me like I'm a person. I think the best already are thinking about that. I mean, when you look at something like when Saks redid their flagship in New York City several years ago and put dichroic glass up and down the escalators to make it a stunning centerpiece, you have to go in and see what that store looks like. I think that's a key. I think I was just in the Hermes new flagship at 63rd and Madison in New York City, and it's a former retail space, a bank, and a townhouse that have all been put into one store. And they tell the story of the brand. On each level is a different material and type of merchandise they sell. And throughout it is a sense of humor because that's what the brand is. So one picture that they had was a rider who's all dressed up and he's like floating on this green. And the idea when asked an employee, he's like, yeah, he remembered everything but the horse. It's like, who thought of that in Hermes? I had no idea with that. They have Lalique pieces of glass in the ceiling because all other stores have that. That's what they had originally. I think when you can tell a story in store design, it's much more appealing than saying, and we have a basketball court and we've got a rock gym. Like, I'm sure some people would go in there and do those things, but I haven't seen a lot of people do it to the extent that it gets the buzz. I think ultimately store design and merchandising is still going to be curated, smaller, leaner, but a whole picture. So instead of seeing, a let's say I'm a Nike store and I've got the top and I've got the pants. I'm also going to see maybe a basketball with it, and I'm going to see the gym bag and everything else curated, color storied, and spotlit well, because we don't have time to look at endless racks. You're seeing smaller racks. We're seeing more choices to make collections, whether that's at the high end or in the middle as well. So again, we're trying to get a fractured customer's attention, because when that phone goes off, we've lost them. Isn't the best experience shopping with a buddy? Isn't the best experience having somebody say, oh, look what this will go great with? Isn't that the experience you want? I think so. I think what we're confusing with experience is kind of gimmicks. Oh, we've got a rock climbing wall. Oh, we put a basketball floor on the 4th floor. It's like, great, that's interesting. The walking company 30 years ago had different surfaces that you could walk on. You had tile and carpet and all these other things to feel how the shoes worked. But I think we are getting distracted thinking about all the things that we could keep somebody in the store for, instead of how can we make it truly personal and feel like that person matters. And as we've come out of COVID, I think it's an excuse to say, oh, but we went through COVID and people, were standoffish. I think both associates and customers were, but it's 5 years later. It's time to leave that alone and remember that people go to shop with people that they know and trust, and people avoid places where they don't feel something. So whatever you're doing, just throwing in I keep going back to the rock climbing wall, but just throwing something in and taking up that sales space isn't a guarantee to being able to make the customer happy. In fact, over the holidays, I had one of my customers who shared this story, had been at an REI, and they had about $1,000 worth of Christmas gifts, week before Christmas. It's raining, it's out at a mall outside here in Albany, New York. And so the young girl's, oh, would you like a membership? She's like, oh, okay, and gives her the benefits. And she goes, okay, here's your receipt. She goes, where's the bags? Oh, we don't have bags. She goes, what do you mean? Oh yeah, people bring their own. I could sell you one for $40. And she's like, are you kidding me? It's raining. I gotta go walk through a dark, rainy parking lot out to my car to try to get my grocery bags to get my stuff here. And the guy behind is like, there's a box you could give her. He's like, we're not allowed to do that, or some such thing. And that customer who had bought $1,000 said, give me my refund on my membership. The managers gave it to her, didn't say a word. And she had to trot out into the rain to get her grocery bags and bring it back. I guarantee you she will not be back. So tell me, did having all the experiential stuff that you could find in that store, was that worth it? Was the merchandising worth it? No, because in the end, you fell hard on the worst place you can, which is the checkout counter. So whatever we call experiential, whatever we call the experience, it has to be from the moment I walk in the door. I've raised my hand. I could have bought something online, but I raised my hand and said, I'm interested in shopping here. And if you don't see that and you value that, all the way till I walk out the door and get me to rave about the experience, because nobody raves about average, then I think you're in trouble. Well, the reality is you can't, so why do that? I mean, who has next day shipping? Who has free returns? Who has subscriptions and all the other things? At the end of the day, like local banks, they were able to compete against Chase and the big boys because they know their market and they know what their customers are doing. I think you have to acknowledge that all of us, I use Amazon, I'm sure you do as well. At the end of the day, we are all going to be using online tools, that's for sure. The danger is that I think we go through and we say, oh, they're all on Amazon. You don't know that. You have no idea. Once I walk out of your store, if I didn't buy something and you turn like a loser's lip, yeah, he's probably gonna go check online. I know that's cheaper. It's like, why didn't you try harder to get the sale? Why didn't you go through and find out why today, of all days, did this person walk into your store? What was it that changed in their life? Why weren't you curious about that? Because if you were, you might have understood why they walked and ended up having a much bigger sale. For example, instead of walking into a hardware store and saying, what can I get you? Wouldn't it be nice to say just, what's your project today? Because a project implies that you're doing something. And if you say, I'm making a deck, then you'll understand, oh, they might need timber, they might need lumber, they might need a new nail gun, there's a million things, versus what can I help you with? I need a new nail gun. Okay, they're over there, aisle 4. See the difference? If I'm not really trying for the sale, then it's really hard for you to blame somebody else and say it's Amazon. And Amazon's gonna be there, Walmart's gonna be there, but things are following you in your social feeds now on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Products are finding us like never before. But if you're going to stand out, then I think you have to understand that it's about making that experience personal. Well, Nordstrom comes to mind in apparel. I mean, they certainly have the goods. They've got a dedicated area. They actually have a concierge desk that talks about it. The bags are sealed. They're ready to go. I think Sweet Green does the same thing. There's a lot of retailers that have mastered it well. Tractor Supply comes to mind that they've done a really good job. But again, you're really just fulfilling a warehouse. So it's a different operation than saying as a retailer, as much as people like to say, oh, it's all omni-channel, it's all unified commerce, there still are silos of retail, right? So you might have something that's a catalog, or you might have an online, or you might have an email list that you're selling to, or social, but the physical store still represents 80% of your sales. And so if you understand that and you look at your conversions, how many people walked in the day, how many people actually bought something, you end up going, wow, it's like 18%. It's low. And then when you realize, but I had all that remaining, right? I had another 72% of people I could have sold something to. Then you start getting busy and saying, well, why didn't we do it? So you look at your merchandising, but more importantly, you look at your employees. When I first started out in retail, it was more than a few days ago, and I was a young man, you had two options. You could go and use your body to make a living, right? You're going to dig a ditch, you're going to be a plumber, you're going to be a farmer, you're going to do these kind of things, or retail. Because retail didn't require anything special, and I put myself through college selling shoes. Well, nowadays, a lot of people have a lot of options, right? They could drive for Uber, they could have a side hustle, they could do consignment, all sorts of other things. And so why are we settling for people who don't want to do any of that stuff and just want to get a paycheck waiting on a hopeful sale? Why don't we invest in the people and have professional salespeople that there's a path to move from a part-time to a full-time to assistant to a manager, and share the wealth when you get up there at the top. There's Walmart just made a $500,000 bet on their best managers as salary. Well, if you look at that and you say, well, why are they doing it? Oh, well, they can. You can too, but it comes down to valuing your employees. Value your employees and making sure that they understand that this isn't just a paycheck. We're trying to develop you as well. And when that happens, you can tap into the minds of those people that might have just been there for a paycheck and make them feel that they matter. Because you make them feel they matter, they're going to be able to make your customers feel that they matter. Oh, that's a double-edged sword. There are plenty of retailers exploring smaller formats. Target famously went after a bunch of smaller formats and closed a lot of them. I know that Macy's and Bloomingdale's have been looking at smaller versions themselves because they know, based on online information, right? They know where their customers are coming from and they can target them better than going into a main store. But the expansion that we're seeing tends to be more in the boutique or smaller businesses who are able to go through, for example, direct to consumer. They know where people were, they're able to find that nest of people that like their brand and open some kind of a satellite to it. Nordstrom, again, speaking about them, opened Nordstrom Local, which was to do tailoring and some other services for people that were not that far away from their big stores. So they're trying to adapt as well. I think what we're all trying to figure out is, where does the customer want to be? How do we get in front of them? And more importantly, how do we make a compelling offer in a world where you can have anything practically anywhere from anybody? Why are they going to choose you? Well, it'd be great if we didn't call them frontline employees. Honestly, the more I think about it, we talk about the front line in battle. We talk about front line in quick serve McDonald's, but the front line, just changing the words, these are our partners. These are people who are going to be successful for us. And yes, the economics of your store may not work as well as it had been. So some people are going to be closing their stores earlier, or they're going to find that maybe they're going to have to switch out from spending so much of their time on fulfilling online orders that they're going to double down on in-store purchases, and they're going to find a different way. I think if we look at the customer, they're going to be telling us what they want, but more importantly, the retailer has to decide, what is the return if I go after this customer? Am I going to be able to make a profit? Because the days of Wall Street money making every exit ramp on the throughway either a Michael's or a Home Depot or a Lowe's, or on the other way, a Kohl's, a Party City, or some of the other ones that all sprang up. Well, you can already see a lot of those locations really weren't that great because they were too close. So we are going to see consolidation. We are seeing malls being reinvented. But the exciting thing is the mall visits are up. According to my buddies at Placer AI, the last 6 months have proved that malls are back with an increase of traffic by about 8%. And you know who it's being led by? Gen Z. The young people are out to explore and to experience with their friends. They're not typically shopping alone. I think the old way of training was we would hire a trainer and we would then say, all right, go train the crew. And they would, make an appointment to go to, I don't know, Duluth, and they would arrive and then they would train people. They would spend the day or whatever, and then they would get on a plane, they go somewhere. And that may have worked. I'm not a fan of that type of training myself, because one and done does not work in the mind. The mind needs repetition, needs a chance to fail, etc. But nowadays, trainer could go out to a store and they're expecting to work with 8 people and 3 have called in sick, and there's a rush, and now they're on the sales floor. And those days are worthless as training. I think the other thing is that an awful lot of people have looked at training as an academic thing. They had people who never sold anything in a retail store in their life, and they created training because it has an acronym. Oh, it's we call it FOUND. Find something to say to a customer. We'll go outside of our comfort, like whatever, right? They've come up with this acronym and then come up with these little words and say, isn't that brilliant? And you're like, no one remembers this. It's not out of anything genuine. So I can tell you that in my place, in my world, sales training is the main thing I do. Sales RX, my online retail sales training program. But we now have Sales RX Plus, where we now have an AI-generated role play member of the team called Sidekick Rex. And so what you'll do is you'll take one of our interactive lessons and just a small bit about it. It's a video, yes, but in it is embedded questions. And I will ask you a question, and if you don't answer it, the system stops. Now I'll look at my watch, or I might eat a Cheeto, or a lot of other things. And you have to make a selection. And when you do, it gets a little different learning tree for everybody, but they all learn it. And now we've got AI with Sidekick Rex. You go into a module with any of a dozen characters, and you're going to use what I just taught you, and you've got to get 100% on it, and you just start speaking to the computer, and you go back and forth. You then get a scorecard. How well did you do? If you did it bad or good, little advice, what you could do better, and then you take it again until you get 100%. Now, most of our learners, this is brand new, we've only been doing it for about 6 weeks, can get that about between 1 and 3 times, like 90% of people. But some people are at like 10, and we intervene and say, you have to rewatch the lesson. This isn't something to try to figure out the test. The goal is to get you to use what we taught you, and then they're going to take a quiz. And after that, then we say the next week, we want you to do a mock, we call them mock sessions on Sales Rec. We don't call them role play, because if I said, Matt, we're going to do a role play, you're like, whoa. If I say, Matt, we're going to do a mock session, you're like, oh, cool, what is that? So you would do one in your store to actually show that you know what you were taught. And the difference is all I care about is accountability. And it only happens when you've got interactive training. You go through and you make it interesting. It's short. Our lessons are 3 to 5 minutes. And you hold people accountable for what they learned. And then you hold them accountable on the sales floor. And if they do it wrong, that's fine. Go back up and take the lesson again, because it's ready for you, and it scales like across the world. We are on 4 continents now. I'm training right now in a way that's impactful and, more importantly, elevates the entire experience in the store and the employees, because you're giving them training. You're actually making them better, because they will email me back, wow, this really helped me in my personal life as well. So you're actually making better people as well as better retailers out of them. That's what's changed in retail around training. I think legacy retailers are going to be looking at their locations. They're probably going to continue pruning them down. I don't think they could be everywhere that they need to be. I don't think the days of, Gap when they first opened have to have these huge stores, because they had the jean shipment only came in twice a month, so they needed all that space. Most don't, so that more shoppable format we're going to see more of. And I think we're going to see malls reinvented, where right now it's all about food and restaurants, but I think we're going to see new entertainment that comes in, and we're going to end up finding that maybe some of them shouldn't survive, and we're going to make them into something different. But until we solve what to do with that real estate of these giant parking lots, they do become prey to bigger retailers like Amazon, turning them into distribution networks, which I think is not going to be a fun thing for the people that bought exclusive homes around the mall because they were supposed to be close to shopping and dining, and now that goes away, and you have this big place where trucks are coming all day. So it's going to be an exciting time to watch. But the one thing about retail in the future is going to be, it's going to be about the person that can answer the shopper's question, what's new, in a way that makes them discover something, and they can put on a new cape and become somebody new. I can only give one piece of advice. I think my number one thing is walk your floor and do mystery shops. Why is it that I can go into a store and see disengaged employees? I saw one guy at a store a couple weeks ago looking like James Dean on the poster for Giant, where his legs up on the counter and his head's down, and I almost expected him to have a cigarette in his mouth or something, looking to be anywhere but in that store. I think that if I can see it, you can see it. And more importantly, if you're having trouble knowing what you're supposed to do with that, then come see me, because in the end, Sales Rex is like a college level class of how do you engage a stranger, discover the shopper, and make the sale. It's not a quick fix. There is no quick fix. So don't try to do it, but it starts with your eyes. If you can adapt the same eyes as I do, and that means coming in the front doors instead of only coming in the back, see what the customers see, and then listening to the conversations on your sales floor. If you aren't hearing people excited, if you aren't hearing people that are laughing, if you don't hear people saying, oh, I look forward to coming back again, then you got some work to do. And frankly, that is the job of a retail executive, which is to say, how do I over-deliver on the promise that we have been putting out there in the marketplace?